In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, we are going to go a little bit against the grain because, we have to talk about the big blockbuster, shocking trade that went down over the weekend. And Richard Stayman, Mr. Mavs draft, and we're going to share our thoughts on the Luka Doncic trade. And the Mavs got a 2029 pick. So we're going to talk about some of the names that you may hear in the 2029 NBA draft. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-host, Mr. Mavs Draft, Richard Stayman. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Your favorite Locked On NBA podcast has a newsletter. So if you're a Mavs fan, or you're still a Mavs fan, you're hanging on, check it out at LockedOnDaily.com. Also Lakers, Jazz, Spurs, Bulls, whoever. Check it out at LockedOnDaily.com. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode. We're coming at you at least 5 days a week. All right, let's just dive into it. Where were you at when you heard the big news that Luka Doncic, it still sounds crazy for me to say it, but where were you at when you heard or found out Luka got traded to the Lakers of all teams?
Yeah, so I'll walk you through it. I'll try and be brief on this. My fiance and I, we were watching, she had never seen Inception. I hadn't rewatched it in a while. So we were like, late night movie and everything. And we got about halfway through where they're starting, actually later than halfway. They were starting the whole heist thing and everything, where they get on the plane, if you've seen it. And I get the notification. I see breaking in all caps. And I'm like, oh, Fox got traded. This is great. And then I kept reading it and I go, oh, dang, Shams got hacked. That's crazy. And then I saw another follow-up and I'm like, that's kind of weird for someone getting hacked. That's odd. Let me pull up the trade machine. I pulled out my laptop while watching the movie. She was all about that, let me tell you. And I ran that and I was like, it doesn't even work. On the trade machine, this is whoever hacked him did a terrible job. At least do something that checks out on the trade machine. And then more starts to come out. Brad Townsend confirms it. Chris Haynes confirms it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm still getting, we're 24 hours past this just about. And it still doesn't feel real to me. Nobody ever saw Luka being traded. There are very few truly untouchable players in the league. We thought Luka would be one. Who knew? So just massive shock. Getting the wear out of these Luka shirts while I can still.
I was trying to put my son to sleep. And he's laying on me. We're on the couch. I cut all the lights off. I cut the TV off. And I end up falling asleep. So I get a bunch of I got an Apple Watch. And it's just buzzing like crazy. And it's just bzz, 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 bzz. And so I didn't even think about it because the Locked On group has a Twitter DM page that just goes off nonstop. So that's what I thought it was. I thought it was the Locked On group saying that, whatever games are in, or just having a discussion. Didn't think anything of it. And for whatever reason, my phone was not near me. I usually have my phone near me. So I had my phone probably on the counter somewhere. So I wake up about 1 o'clock in the morning and I put my son to bed and then I go get into bed. And then I had this dream, and I'm trying to make this clear. I had this dream that something happened with my car. And I remember, oh man, I left my car out front. Let me go put it in the garage. So I get up, put my car in the garage. I get into bed. And then my son, who's 2 years old, the biggest Mavs fan in the world, he wakes up fussing and screaming. And I guess he realized that he's in the room by himself. We just moved, so he's having a hard time adjusting to the new space. So I get up, I put him in the bed with me and my wife. And then I look at my phone and I just see Luka Doncic traded to Lakers. No way. I don't pay it any attention. so then I look again and I say, all right, let me go on ESPN and let me find out, let me see the stats, the box scores of some of the college games that late games. I go and then I see it on the ESPN app. And I'll just say I haven't been to sleep since. It's been almost 24 hours. I could not go to bed. I could not sleep. I thought I was dreaming. I thought I had like these little cat naps here and there. And I thought like, there's no way this is happening. I'm still shocked by it. I guess it is real. But I never thought this could happen. I mean, when I think of like events like this that had me like just absolutely shook, totally different scenario, but one was the Kobe situation where you're just kind of like in shock. And I was in China when that happened. So it was like first thing in the morning, I believe. Totally different scenario, but I mean, just sitting there in shock. I can't think of too many other things. There definitely hasn't been a trade that has had me just like, I mean, there was no leaks. There was no hints. Like, I don't have anything to compare it to as far as from a trade. Do you?
I mean, the only two things, it's not even trades, different acquisitions. I mean, it's different too because we had buildup and there was whole months of speculation, which were LeBron in 2010 and even again 2018 and 2014 when he was moving around, and then KD to the Warriors. Those are the only two things where it's like KD more so. He joined a 73 win team where it was like, oh my God, he broke basketball. And that's the closest one for me. I can't remember a trade, maybe the Kawhi PG stuff in 2019, but that was a different level of shock. That was stuff where it was like, we knew there could be movement. We didn't think of that.
Yeah, we didn't think like they'd packaged together. I remember that, but again, like I mean, there was helicopters flying Kawhi around. You knew that he was possibly going to leave. I just saw Zach Lowe posted a video on Twitter. He said Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. So that was probably pretty close, but I was young. Maybe Roy Jones getting knocked out by Antonio Tarver. That was probably equally shocking. But I mean, that's a boxing match, so you know something is going to happen. But Luka being traded to the Lakers. All right, now that you've had time to somewhat digest it, what are your thoughts on the trade?
Still feels fishy and almost and like rocky. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think it's a clean swap. You didn't get another playmaker for him. So now you have to go out and make another trade probably. But now the Mavs are still limited. It's kind of the same situation they were in where maybe you move Gafford, but they've talked an awful lot about keeping him around. So it's hard to say. I mean, I kind of want to see it play out. I feel like a lot of people have jumped to the absolute worst case scenario. And like, I get it. It's easy to, but at least let them play a game before, jumping that far down. The Mavs play 3 games this week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then it's pretty much the All-Star break. Like, see what happens in those 3 games.
Well, I'll be at the game Saturday. It's a home game. Looking forward to that. I don't know how many people are going to be there. And then they play again on Monday. They play the Kings. And that was a game that I was planning on taking my wife to. And I mean, I guess she's going to see Anthony Davis and Zach LaVine on new teams. For the Lakers, I was just even shocked by it. I mean, I get it, but they're playing well. I think they've won 8 out of their last 10, if I'm not mistaken, or they're playing well. And they just decided to I don't know. Do you think that they decided to just punt the season right now or
That's what's crazy to me. They're bottom 10 in defense and they traded away Anthony Davis. Like Luka fixes a lot of different things. He doesn't fix defense. Like if you think you're getting a defensive improvement with him, you need a wake up call. And I don't know if they're going to make other moves too, but it just feels really hard to do. They're in the exact same situation as Dallas, in the same situation they were in before, which is like, you can't trade everybody. So do they trade LeBron and start like, there's just all these different scenarios where everything feels unlikely, but something has to happen.
It's still kind of mind boggling. And I can't imagine both teams are done, but we only have, I don't even know if we have 90 hours left until the trade deadline. It'll be less than that by the time people are listening to this. All right, up next, we're going to talk about Anthony Davis and his fit with the Mavs. And this is an NBA draft podcast. So we're going to talk about the Mavs and their lack of picks and then mention a couple guys from the 2029 NBA draft. So we're going to talk about some ninth graders. Stay tuned. All right, before we get into the second segment, let's talk about Game Time. I have a question. Are you looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it is a concert, a comedy show, or a sporting event? Finding the right ticket at the right price, it can absolutely be a headache, but with Game Time Picks, it has never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you do not have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. And I've used Game Time plenty of times. I've used it to go to boxing matches, baseball games, WNBA games, college basketball games. And with the Game Time app, it is very simple. It is easy to use, and you are covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a deal somewhere cheaper, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, second segment, Anthony Davis. I like what he can do for the Mavs. I just wish that it was him, Kyrie, and Luka together. My question is, and I saw Nico Harrison, the Mavs GM, mention, I don't know if it's Kid or Nico, one of them mentioned that they think AD is going to close at the 5. So I'm like, all right, if AD closes at the 5, so you have Lively and Gafford on the bench, and then if they're starting, let's say everybody's healthy. So is the starting lineup Kyrie, Clay, PJ Washington at the 3, AD at the 4, and Lively at the 5? I like PJ Washington a lot. I don't know if playing the 3 is best for him, even though he proved that he can defend. He can defend. He's a versatile defender, I should say. But I wonder how that impacts him because he was trending for a big payday. He's really trending towards the payday that he thought he was supposed to get in Charlotte, and he's proven to be underpaid. But I wonder how that impacts him. Again, their closing lineup, is Max Christie better than Quentin Grimes? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this goes back to I just don't think the lineup is complete. Like I feel like there's some parts that are still moving and that they have to figure out. I don't like having Lively close out Lively and Gafford ride the bench to close out games. That feels wrong given that everything we've seen and how good Lively is. And don't get me wrong, Anthony Davis right now is better defensively. But I feel like there's an element of could they coexist depending on the situation, if they're down a couple of points and they're starting from behind, it may actually make sense because you can't have two of those guys out there. But I don't really get it. And like you kind of said, with the guard play, it's just all this stuff, none of it meshes right now. That's why I just feel like another trade is coming. And that's where things may come a little bit more clear.
You think the Mavs need to add another ball handler?
I think so. I have had a lot of people ask me basically if they even added a guard, who would they add? And it's been a little bit tough to find some guys. I don't think it's exactly a bunch of teams are trying to move guards right now. I mean, you can maybe get Marcus Smart. That's probably the only one that kind of fits what the Mavs are looking for if they really are all in on defense. But even then, he's still not the easiest to trade for. It has to be a 3-for-1, essentially.
Yeah. Let's talk about the picks. What was the biggest shock to you outside of the trade? That the Mavs only got one pick?
Yes, that. It's that. Fox got 3 picks.
Yeah.
And he demanded basically to go to San Antonio.
Or 5?
Yeah. I mean, 3 for
got a haul.
I mean, dude, that to me, either they know something about Luka that the public doesn't know, or just negligence, and both scare me.
So here's my thought behind it. I've had a lot of time to think about this. Either A, the calf is really bad, and it's what is his 3rd or 4th calf injury? Either they think it's really bad, B, and this is what I'm leaning towards, Nico Harrison is going to get all the blame. I'm leaning towards this was a move that came from all the way up top. There's a conspiracy theory that I have that I won't mention because I don't want to be aggregated. But I think there's more to it. There has to be more to it. You don't trade, and it's been mentioned a gazillion times over the last 18 hours. You don't trade a 25-year-old, 5-time All NBA player that didn't demand a trade. You don't trade him because he's out of shape. And even then, if yes, the conditioning could be better, but we're talking about a guy that was playing 35 plus minutes a night as the number one name on the scouting report, facing every single defense, was giving you like 38 and 8, or, a triple double threat every night. I mean, some games you may go off for 70. You can't do that if you're out of shape. And maybe, the conditioning could be better to where he can give multiple efforts on defense. My counter to that is, and I guess I have a little bit of a better understanding because I've spent time in Europe. If you're an international player, and I think it's going to happen with Victor down the line, you don't have your summers because every summer you are expected to represent your country and compete for whether it's an Olympic qualifier, whether it's Eurobasket, whether it's something. And for some players, maybe if you're in France or Spain, you have the luxury of saying, all right, I'm going to take this one off. We have some other fringe NBA guys or EuroLeague guys. But for Slovenia, I mean, their country's basketball success is fully dependent on Luka right now. I was there at Eurobasket 2017 when he led them to the Eurobasket win, and I saw like how much it means to the fans or the people in the country. So there's a big pressure to play during the summer. He doesn't get off seasons. He doesn't have time to rest. I remember I actually spoke with Bogdanovich once for the Hawks, and he was saying that he never had a chance to really work on his game because he was in season 10 to 11 months out of the year. And the time you're not playing, you're resting. So he's saying once he got to the NBA and he took some time off, I think he may have taken a summer off, he can actually like work out. But if you're playing in certain leagues like Spain, it's a 10-month season. I mean, if you remember, he barely made it to the draft. He couldn't work out for any teams. Same with Victor, because it's a long season and you go straight to summer league and then you got national team duty. So with that being said, yes, he probably takes a month off and does absolutely nothing and sits on a yacht and chills. And it doesn't help that he's not like posting videos of him working out like Ben Simmons, where he tricks people every year. But with that being said, yes, the conditioning could get a little bit better. But I mean, like, who's stopping him? He led his team to the finals. So that's why I say, it's long-winded here, there has to be more to it. You don't trade him because you say he's out of shape. Either the calf injury is horrible and you're worried about being in the Embiid situation, but even then, from a PR standpoint, you still don't make that trade.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we've seen out of shape Luka. I mean, we saw that for 1.5, 2 seasons, and over those that span, the 100 whatever games that was, he still averaged 38 and 8. Like, we're still taking out of shape Luka, over a heavy majority of the players. Like, he is still a top 10 to 20 player at the very worst in his worst scenario. Now, you can make the argument, kind of like you said with Embiid, the games played, that may alter some stuff. But ultimately, I do think one of the big takeaways here is just the approach of Supermax. I mean, is that something now where other teams go, well, the Mavs did it with Luka, maybe we should do it? And that's where I think tying this into the draft, I think that's where hitting on draft picks every year kind of matters.
And speaking of that, I had a conversation with an NBA coach probably in November, and he told me Trae Young is not getting a Supermax. And I said, there's no way that, I mean, you can't do that. Like, even if Trae Young has a bad year, he's still going to put up 20 and 10. And he said, no. He said, think about it. Are you going to give a guy $300 million who is going to lead your team to the play-in tournament every year? And I said, okay, that's valid. That makes sense. But how do you justify like not giving it to him? And there's probably a team that would. And he says, what team is going to pay him? So I was like, Brooklyn? And he's like, exactly. He's like, yeah, some team will pay him, but I don't think you can give Trae Young $300 million. And now I'm like, all right, if the Mavs were scared to give Luka that amount of money, I mean, who gets it? SGA? I mean, it'd be perfect timing for him to get it. So you can't dispute that. I mean, does Trae Young get a Supermax?
Probably not. I mean, Atlanta has made one conference finals, and now they're. I mean, remember when Portland made theirs? What was it? 8 years ago now, almost like they lost to the KD Warriors, and that was their peak, and they really struggled to even get close to that anytime since. And the exact same sentiment has been true for the Hawks. At what point do you just say it's not worth us giving him this insane amount of money, like you said, to be exactly where they are? And that's where I think the cap also just comes into interesting elements, the aprons and everything, like all that just changes the dynamics. And I think this is just this could very well be the first domino of the changes in the CBA and how it affects the league day to day.
I think even if, I mean, like, all right, yes, 345, what he would have been eligible for is a lot of money. Obviously, I don't have that type of money. But you're going to get a packed arena, 40-something games a year. The moral support, the city. I mean, I was here during a lot of the Dirk era. The fans never stopped coming. Like, it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't, I mean, maybe they weren't profitable. I'm sure they were, but I mean, Mark Cuban was paying some pretty hefty tax bills at the time. But if you look at downtown Dallas and all the businesses that probably survived because for the last 20-something years, you've had Dirk and Luka filling up, just bringing traffic downtown. I'm curious to find out what happens when the Mavs play a home game next Saturday. I mean, the fan base here is absolutely, I mean, they're furious. Like, I went on the Instagram comments and read some of the comments. They're absolutely furious. So even if you don't feel like he's going to lead you to a championship, and of course the championship is the end goal, but it's a business. I think I'd rather have Luka making 345 as a contender, and I know like my arena is going to be packed, than not having him and trying to rebuild and find another Luka. Like, because I think right now at this point, imagine like trying to recruit free agents. Oh, no, you guys traded Luka. You've already traded.
He wanted to be there.
Yeah, you traded Harrison Barnes during the middle of the game. I know it's a different, it's a different front office in a sense, but up next, we're finally going to talk about the draft, dig a little bit more into the picks or lack of picks. And then I have some names that I have identified as picks in the 2029 NBA draft for the Dallas Mavericks. Stay tuned. All right, let's talk about Prize Picks because basketball season is heating up and there is no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. It is the best place for daily fantasy sports. There's over 10 million members and billions have been awarded in winnings. And Prize Picks makes it easy to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Here's how it works. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. This week, if you're looking at the board and you're looking for more, so you may say Jason Tatum on points or LeBron James on assists. And the best part is Prize Picks keeps it simple. You can set your lineups in less than 60 seconds, and they're fast, secure withdrawals. It means you get paid quickly when you win. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, last segment, 2029 NBA draft. So last night, that means there was some kid that's like in 9th grade that got the alert on his phone that Luka Doncic was traded to the Lakers. not realizing that he is going to be that pick for the Dallas Mavericks. Does 2029 seem like super far out to you? Like, have you even started scouting that far?
It did. It did. I have. So last year at EYBL and like all the AAU stuff. So there are few kids who are playing up a year. Now, the thing with this is a lot of those kids will reclassify since they're generally already 15 years old playing the 15U, but they're playing as ninth graders. So I had 10 guys on my list that I had as freshmen. There are still guys that could be returners from 2027 even,
Yep.
but for now, I mean, I have 10 players on my list. I'm curious. We haven't rehearsed this or anything. I'm curious who some of your names are on this.
Well, the one that stands out to me is just because he has ties to the Mavericks is Eric Dampier Jr., who's
Yeah.
like a 6'9", probably 6'10" now. I mean, you probably have to check the measurements every 6 weeks. But he's a big, he's skilled, he's coordinated. I've seen him bring the ball up court. He's not like a plotting traditional back to the basket big like his father. He, like I said, he's skilled, soft touch around the rim. I've seen him finish with both hands on the, and I'm still crazy that we're talking about the 2029 NBA draft and breaking down film of him against, at least from what I saw, like some eighth graders this past summer. But so, like I said, soft touch, very good, scoring off his left shoulder. Good. I mean, he's not like a crazy bouncy athlete, but he gets off the ground fast. He can be a play finisher. So that was the first one that came to mind simply because of the ties to the Mavericks. Aiden Diggs. I like Cameron Mercer. What are some names that you have on your radar?
Yeah, I had all three of those at the top of my board. There's another kid. He's I feel like this one's right up your alley. Reese Robinson. He's an American kid who's playing in Spain. He plays for the Real Madrid, or not Real Madrid. Yeah, Real Madrid's youth program. He is a 6'6" guard, really long, really good shooting touch. Still unclear about how much of a point guard he truly is, but there is some stuff with him that I've liked. There's also this kid, Peter Julius, massive body already, high upside, just living in the paint. A lot of field stuff needs to come along, but those are, I would add, like Aiden Diggs is really good. Cam Mercer is really good. I like a lot of the guys in that class early on. We'll get a better taste this year because the 15Us are the true 2028s this year. So a lot of different guys will prevail. And generally, this is where you can start seeing like, okay, these guys will be on the rankings and these guys will have a foreseeable path, like a real path to get to the NBA. This is where it really starts is this year.
Yeah, and a lot can change. I mean, a lot can change. If I'm not mistaken, DJ Wagner was like the number one player in the country when he was a freshman. And then even guys when they're seniors can be the number one player as a senior. We saw Justin Edwards, who's actually playing well, but Justin Edwards was the projected number one pick, and he ended up on a two-way. But a lot can change. But I like Aiden Diggs. He is a 6'5". I think he's a combo from Arizona, the Phoenix area. Crafty shot maker. He's really good at scoring off the dribble, gets to his pull-up, has the potential to be a really, really good three-level scorer. Right now, he's a better shooter off the dribble than off the catch, but he's a sneaky good passer. Cameron Mercer. I want to hear your thoughts about Cameron Mercer.
Yeah, he is massive. I think he's already 6'6", 6'7" when he was like 14. I saw him at EYBL this last year, and I saw the flashes. He wasn't super productive every single game, but I saw the flashes of how his athleticism and his length won him stuff. And and it wasn't just him being bigger than others. It was truly him knowing how to use his body. And I thought that was really impressive that once his skill set comes along to where he is athletically and physically, I think a lot of that will benefit him. And I think he's got a real path to being like that golden archetype, right? Where he's like somewhere in that 6'7" to 6'9" range with ball skills, can potentially shoot the ball. Like that's just a really all around player. He has the upside to be that.
Yeah. Broad shoulders, appears to have long arms. He's just physically a lot more mature than his peers. And it's not like he's super strong. He just looks like he has the body of a 18-year-old in a sense. Just like I said, the shoulders, he just looks physically advanced. I don't want to say he's not a man child in a sense like LeBron was, but I mean, he just looks like he's a lot more mature physically than a ninth grader. But he's a gifted scorer, lefty, can get downhill. His game is a lot advanced. I mean, I keep saying it, but that's just the best way to describe it. Any other names that are like on your radar, guys that you've seen?
There's a few. There's a kid, Ian Archibald, who I found out recently. There's also a singer named Ian Archibald, and that's not who I'm talking about here. But he's an interesting guard that I saw. I want to say it was on EYBL. But he's been a little bit interesting, just really athletic. I mean, I think there's some stuff with him. Still need to see more in full, but I remember marking his name down and thinking, hey, this could be somebody. There are guys in other classes where I'm like, they're probably not going to be a one and done, and their game may take a while, that actually may be guys to monitor. So there's definitely some, even in next year, where I'm like, this is a guy who's going to eventually get to Portsmouth and kill it. Oftentimes the Portsmouth guys are guys that nobody had heard of coming into high school, so it's pretty inaccurate, but there definitely could be upperclassmen. I mean, even someone in the 26 class, like Alex Constanza, I think he's going to need time in college. Give him 3 years to really get his game together. 6'8", real guard skills, can shoot, can defend, but has a little bit of a motor issue. If he can get that better over a couple of years, I think he's somebody that absolutely could be in that first round of 2029.
Again, it's crazy. We're talking about 9.
It feels so old.
Right now, part of the Luka Doncic-Anthony Davis trade, which is still mind-boggling as is. Another name, and I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to really evaluate him, but I got a text at 4:33 a.m. from an NBA executive talking about, I tweeted something about the 2029 NBA draft, and he's like, Bentley Lusakino. I've seen the name. I haven't had a chance to watch him and give a fair evaluation, but there's a scout for an NBA team that sent me a message. So I looked up the name. I saw he was in Team USA's camp. So I have a little homework to do to watch him, because I don't know what to think. Like, the Mavs right now, and I can end on this, Kyrie and AD and Clay are all in their 30s. 2029, they could be talking about, I mean, it could be a lottery team. It's very realistic that they could be a lottery team, which is something that I imagine the Mavs are going to have to really change their scouting philosophy, because with Luka being 25, you never had to, at least you never thought like in the next 5 years, I guess 2029 is just 4 years from now. And in 4 years, Luka will be like 29, 30 in the middle of his prime. You never would think, all right, the Mavs would be a team that could be a potential lottery team. So I see you shaking your head.
I just never thought this actual podcast would happen. I don't know what timeline we got thrown into to have this all happen. It's just, I never thought we would be saying that the Mavs need to look at the top of 2029 to replace Luka Doncic while he is 29 years old.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he would be a lifer. I thought at least he'd be with the Mavs at least 10, 12 years, but it's still crazy. Hey, but if you're a Laker fan, all those crazy photoshops that they've been doing for the last 100 years, I mean, it's like they willed Anthony Davis to the Lakers. They got Luka. If you're a Raptors fan, you better get them Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, I guess you can use AI now. You don't have to do jersey swaps. But it might be realistic that he could end up in Toronto. I know people in Oklahoma City don't want to hear that, but nothing is off the table now.
Nothing. Yeah, that's the thing too. And like, just one last thought on this. The top guys in the league, well, Shai's already been moved, right? Luka now has been moved. It's a little bit different with Shai, obviously. He was a prospect more when he was traded. But Giannis, there's been rumblings of like, hey, if it doesn't work, he might be out. Could Jokic be the next one? Who knows? Like, I think there's the shakeup of guys don't finish where they started anymore. And it's going to be unbelievably, like, it's already unbelievably rare. It's going to be double that going forward, especially for top end guys. And this might just be the trend. Like, you have to kind of roll with the punches and adapt. This might be the next wave.
Wemby is the last hope. Wemby's the last. I mean, I can see somewhere Ja Morant being moved. I mean, I could see Anthony Edwards wanting to go home to Atlanta. Wemby. And even then, like in his rookie year, you were hearing rumblings like he's putting pressure on the Spurs. Like he wants to win right away. And they're making win now moves. And he's only in his second year. So it's been a crazy 24 hours. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. Again, this episode was a little bit different than the norm, but we just had to share our thoughts on a crazy weekend in the NBA. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Also, check it out, lockedondaily.com. It is your one-stop daily source for ultimate league coverage delivered right to your inbox. That is the Locked On newsletter. Once again, it's Rafael, Barlowe, and Richard Stayman, and we are out of here.